We are just hours away from the 2025 NFL Draft, the annual event that football teams hope will secure the future of their franchise or add to an already dominant team.
That's right. Thousands of college football players are eligible over 3 days and 7 rounds, hoping to be drafted by one of 32 franchises vying for the best talent on offer.
But how does it exactly all work? Who will be the names making the headlines this year, and what can other sports learn from the draft? We're discussing it all with a Super Bowl champion on today's episode of This Sporting Planet. Natalie Sawyer here with Todd Harris and Kate Allman, as well as Super Bowl winner Jason Bell shortly. Everything you need to know on the NFL draft is coming up for you. But first, let's get you up to speed on everything that's been happening in the world of sports since we last spoke, starting with my part of the world. And guys, there's a lot to cover, lots to mention. In England, for example, some of the biggest news to emerge from Liverpool in the last few weeks is that Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk are staying after the pair both signed new 2-year deals at the club. You could say they're statement signings, really, because these two players maybe just showing they believe in the Arne Slot project. And staying with Liverpool, they are just one win away from winning the Premier League at the time of recording. They need just that solo victory from their final 5 games to secure their 20th league title, which would be a joint record in English football alongside their rivals, Manchester United. And actually, Liverpool could be crowned champions without even playing, should Arsenal lose to Palace tonight. Another rival of the Red Devils will face them once again next season, with Leeds as well as Burnley, both promoted to the Premier League on Easter Monday, with the latter beating Sheffield United to confirm the top 2 in the Championship. Todd, you can't quickly put the cap on and take it off again.
I'm going to wear it for the episode now.
I was so happy for the Clarets. Can I just say that? I watched that whole game against Sheffield, and it was such an exciting game. I wish I was at Turf Moor, but congratulations to them. I mean, they were up, they were down, they're back up again. So to me, it shows the resilience. The new coach they brought in, Alan Pace, his whole crew, Scott Parker and the whole crew, I just think did a masterful job. They weren't even at the top, and I almost want to say they did themselves a solid because they didn't have the pressure of trying to get promoted throughout so much of the season because they came on so late, and then they just at the wire they're across the line.
Yeah, fantastic all round, and let's not forget their incredible defensive ability. They've only conceded 15 goals so far, with just a couple of games left in the Championship, which is really quite remarkable. Staying with football, a quick nod to Edward Russell, who isn't with us today, but his beloved Arsenal side beat Real Madrid over the 2 legs in their Champions League quarter-final after a 2-1 victory at the Bernabeu to secure what turned out to be a 5-1 aggregate win. So they're in good spirits going into their semi-finals, although they do have to play PSG. So not the easiest last 4 contender to face as such. Let's bring you some golf news. Rory McIlroy has finally completed the career Grand Slam with victory at the Masters. The Northern Irishman claimed the famous green jacket in a dramatic playoff with Justin Rose, beating him then. And as soon as that 3-foot putt went in and he won the title, he dropped into, he collapsed, I should say, on the floor, didn't he? Weeping tears of joy. It was fantastic. And for context, McIlroy had won every other major by the end of 2014, threw away a 4-shot lead in the final round of the 2011 Masters. So this has been a long time coming. And Kate, I saw you giving a little celebration for McIlroy there.
I'm a golfer myself, nowhere near the standard of anyone that we ever talk about, obviously, but I know how frustrating the game is. You guys know as well, and you know how far he's come to try and get this 4th, this Masters. The amount of ups and downs he went through felt like I was playing Monopoly or on a really bad roller coaster, because he went down, he went up, he had to go to the final hole, he had an opportunity to win it with a putt and he missed the putt, then going to the playoff. And then, I just thought his resilience and steely nerve to stay in control through that playoff and to finally finish it on a repeat of that 18th hole was incredible. I don't think I've watched any golf tournament that has come down to the wire and meant so much to a winner. Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful thing to watch. Also a shout out to Poppy McIlroy, who apparently is the best putter on the entire Masters course that whole week.
This is his little daughter. You're absolutely right to pick her out. But Todd, you know what was fascinating? Obviously, loads of people would have stayed up late in Europe to watch Rory finally get his hands on that green jacket. And coming into that final round, he was alongside Bryson DeChambeau. And I really thought the Augusta crowd was going to be quite partisan and really backing DeChambeau, but it felt like there were a lot of McIlroy fans out there.
No, I think you're exactly right, Natalie. I think everyone felt the pressure that was on Rory's shoulders of being so close for so long. And for me, that was the most compelling golf I have seen in 20 years. You have to go back to the Tiger Woods heydays. And to Kate's point, it was a roller coaster. It was up, it was down. He was going to win it. He's going to throw it away. And it was just that drama of sport. And I think that's what makes sport so good. Natalie, to your point, when he dropped to his knees on that sacred sod and wept like a child after getting what has seemed like an impossible dream, and he got it done. And for him to have had 4 double bogeys and still won the Masters, I was like, he couldn't have made it easy on the rest of us. He had to do it this way in typical Rory fashion, but I was cheering for him. I was so happy for him, and he just seems like such a great guy, and I just think he earned it. So now he joins that rare field of only 6 that have won the Grand Slam of all the events. And I think it's got to be one of the hardest things to accomplish is being in that club. I mean, you think of tennis winning the Grand Slam, but I would give the nod to golf being that much harder.
Yeah, it certainly is difficult. And as you say, he's only one of 6 to have done it. Goes to show how hard it really is to do. Just quickly to round up some of the other news from over here as such, Spanish rider Marc Marquez has continued his remarkable start to the new MotoGP season by claiming a 3rd win in 4 races, this time at the Qatar Grand Prix. The only race he didn't win was the one that he crashed out of whilst leading by a huge margin. He's also claimed every single pole position and every fastest lap this season, heads into his home race, which is the Spanish Grand Prix this weekend, but faces some real stiff competition from the rider who's won the last 3 editions of this event, which happens to be Francesco Bagnaia. And at the weekend, the streets of the English capital will be pounded by thousands of runners for the London Marathon, so stay tuned for that. But we will be denied 2 of the best in the women's elite race, as Kenya's world record holder Ruth Chepngetich has pulled out, along with the defending champion and compatriot Perez Jepchirchir, with injuries, mental and physical issues being given as the reasons for their withdrawal. So disappointment that we won't see 2 of the best runners in that London Marathon, but still always one to look out for. It's a great event, and lots of those amateur competitors raising money for charity. So it's fabulous.
Will we see you pounding the pavement, Nat?
Yeah.
Do I look like I've been training for a marathon? I don't think so. No, I am not a good runner. So I never say never, but at this present moment, it's a no from me, Kate.
Okay, maybe next season, maybe next year. We'll
You
look
never
forward
know.
to it. Moving over to Southeast Asia and Australia, big news in the A-League women's, guys. Melbourne City women have etched their names into football history books by becoming the first team in the A-League to complete a full home and away season, 23 rounds, undefeated. And the team, dubbed the Invincibles, have won the premiership now, and they look to double their trophy haul with the championship finals coming up over the next 2 weeks. Has that ever been done in another football league that either of you know of?
Well, the Arsenal men team did it. They were the Invincibles. You've got to go back to the early 2000s under Arsene Wenger when they achieved that feat. But it's simply incredible to do that. To not take your eye off the ball as such in any game, especially when you get towards the end and you know you've completed the job, but to still go through. And Bayer Leverkusen under Xavi Alonso not so long ago, of course, when they won the title, they did it too. But it's a rare feat, certainly.
And surely the pressure just builds every game that you win. The pressure becomes don't lose as that is approaching and the more it's talked about. I just think it's outstanding. And that team, the Melbourne City women, watch them in the Asian Women's Champions League. Their finals are coming up in May. I'll be going over to China for it. It'll be very exciting. The first ever Asian Women's Champions League, guys, and $1 million US on the line for the winner, which is massive in women's football. So outstanding. Turning our attention to the track, and Oscar Piastri has moved into #1 spot in the F1, and it is the first time an Australian has led the Drivers' Championship for 15 years, following his manager Marc Webber in 2010. Big news for the F1.
Really big news, isn't it? And when I consider some of the, let's say, the English drivers out there. Lewis Hamilton, I mean, he bemoaned that Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, calling it horrible, had no explanation
Yeah.
as to lack of pace and that his car was experiencing. And yeah, a bit of a blow for Lewis Hamilton. That switch to Ferrari, not quite working out for him. But yeah, Piastri going really, really well. And obviously a shout out to the McLaren pair, because Lando Norris is second currently in the standings too.
Do you guys think it's a good thing, though, that F1 is seeing this, I don't say a renaissance of parity? I mean, it was Max Verstappen's show, it seemed like forever, or Lewis Hamilton, and now the new names that are getting sprinkled in there, I love it. I love that there's different winners. I love that there's new names are being put at the top. I mean, everyone should share the money, and I don't feel too bad for Lewis Hamilton and his red Ferrari, because I think he's getting paid
Yeah.
very handsomely.
I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be okay, Todd. I think it's awesome. I think, it broadens the appeal. And certainly I know that a lot
Yeah.
of Aussies are watching it now, that we have someone in the mix for the first time since Mark Webber. It's a fascinating thing to watch. Speaking of Aussies, in the Aussie rules, defending premiers, the Brisbane Lions are shaping up for back-to-back flags. They started the season with 5 wins in a row, guys. They only just got 1 loss over Easter. That was Collingwood that brought them the loss. And of course, Collingwood and Brisbane faced off 2 years ago in the grand final, and they've had a rivalry since. So it looks like it's going to be the Magpies and the Lions again in 2025 as the teams to beat. And then earlier this month, and we'll go into this later on, a former Wallaby and a 2-time Rugby World Cup player, Jordan Petaia, completed an impressive code switch to the American NFL. He signed with the LA Chargers 1 month out from the NFL draft. It's one of many of the fascinating storylines and off-season moves that we're going to chat with Jason Bell with shortly.
I love the idea of these international players coming to the NFL. And I think it just shows not necessarily just inclusion, but I think it shows the NFL's willingness to go, we will go anywhere to find the best athletes possible that will help us win. We aren't confined to the 50 states. We will go anywhere in the world to find anyone, because I feel like Australia's contribution has been fantastic in the NFL, especially with kickers. They know how to kick.
Kickers and O-lineman Todd Harris. It turns out that Jordan Mailata's pretty good at doing that,
Yes.
Super Bowl winner. But you're right, the kickers are the big thing. Obviously, the Aussie rules is where most of them are bred. We grow up kicking a football rather than throwing one, like in the American NFL. So a lot of our kickers, I mean, a lot of just normal kind of Aussie rules guys are able to kick a lot further than the standard of Americans growing up. That gets them into college, and you see it across the colleges. The championship had 2 Australian kickers on both sides. So it'll be fascinating as we watch that generation grow up. I think it's only a recent thing that college players are coming over from Australia. But as we see that develop and that generation grow, I think we're going to see more and more in the NFL.
Natalie, why are not more Premier League players coming over? I feel like when I watched some of the goalkeepers,
Yeah.
they would be amazing field goal kickers. I mean, they could tee it up
Totally.
from 70 yards out and say, I have no problem putting that through.
I mean, you're absolutely right. It makes perfect sense. But obviously, with Petaia being a rugby player, we've had a few rugby players go out there. Christian Wade is a name that springs to mind. Lewis Rees Zammit not so long ago as well was out there playing and trying to break into the NFL. It's not been easy for those particular players that I've mentioned. You know, they haven't lasted the course, but it's just great actually that you can see this switch happening. I know a lot of Gaelic football players try and make something of it in America as well. So I just love the fact that players can be adaptable and can be versatile and make the switches into different sports. It's fascinating.
All right, well, here in the Americas, and I'll keep this brief because we want to get to Jason Bell and we're going to talk about the NFL draft, but the NBA playoffs are underway and already some teams look unbeatable while others are in danger of being bounced earlier than their payroll might suggest. Plus, the NHL playoffs are going on and they are running for the quest for Lord Stanley's Cup. Will this be a year that the Canadian team takes the cup? I'm sure everyone's watching Alexander Ovechkin still at 39, getting it done. I don't know how he does it. Guys, he broke his leg this year and then went on and beat Wayne Gretzky's record, and he's still going. So he's kind of like the Energizer Bunny for the NHL. So you've got the NBA draft, you've got the NHL playoffs, then you've got the NFL draft, which is coming up shortly, and then, of course, you've got the baseball season underway as well. And not to forget soccer or football, as we like to say. Could we be in for, just wrap your heads around this, could we be in for a 64-team FIFA World Cup in 2030? I mean, the thought of it, 64 teams. The next edition here in the U.S. will be the first with 48 in 2026, but South America's governing body, CONMEBOL, has suggested a further expansion to mark the competition's 100-year anniversary, with the first matches set to be hosted in Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So you guys come from great football nations as well. The thought of 64 teams, what is that bracket going to look like?
Is there a sheet of paper large enough for Todd Harris's bracket in the 64-team World Cup? I don't think there is. I don't think so. That's gonna be crazy, Todd. I don't
too
think
much.
I can't handle it. I mean, the World Cup is enough viewing enough as it is, and you've just mentioned all
Right.
the other sports we've got going on at the same time. We've got a strict sporting schedule, and adding number of doubling the number of teams is just not going to work for me. What about you, Nat?
No, it's a no for me. It's all about
Yeah.
money, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's what this is all centering on. Look, I love the idea of giving, let's say, lesser nations the chance of playing on a world
Right.
stage. But and so for that reason, I think, yeah, it's great. But at the same time, I just don't think we need as many games as this is going to end up being. Plus,
Mm.
also, you might end up with hammerings, and nobody wants to see a minnow
No.
go into a World Cup and being hammered every time that they're kicking a ball. So, yeah, I understand it's a lovely idea, but let's just shelve that one.
Yeah, you leave that for the qualification tournaments. And we do
Yes.
already have
Yeah.
many qualification tournaments where those teams get an opportunity. And even then, there are hammerings, as you say, Natalie.
Yeah,
Hammerings is a great word, by the way. Yeah, I think we're all agreed we're going to stick with the same format that we currently have. World Cup, FIFA, cool idea, but won't last. So, just a reminder, in between episodes, you can keep up to date with all the global sports news on our social channels and YouTube page, including full-length interviews with all our guests. Give us a follow, subscribe, and share with all your friends and family. And please do leave us a review while you're there as well.
So, as we've been saying, the 2025 NFL draft is now just hours away, when thousands of college graduates will be hoping they're snapped up by one of the 32 teams and their football dream finally becomes a reality. To help us preview what we can expect from this year, as well as understand what goes on across the 7 rounds in 3 days, I'm delighted to say we're joined by Super Bowl champion and former Dallas Cowboys, Houston Texans, and New York Giants player and fellow podcaster, let's not forget, and broadcaster, Jason Bell. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Hello, everyone. And I have watched these drafts year over year. I sat there and watched everybody go before me when I was finally picked up in the NFL. So I'm somewhat of an expert on not being picked. This will be fun and interesting. But man, what a moment, what a time, and lives will be changed because of it.
So we'll come to what happened with you. And obviously, you've always given us a little highlight. Well, maybe it was a low light at the time, but we know what happened in the end and how successful your career turned out to be. But in terms of the NFL draft and how everyone, and I'm assuming everyone across the nation, and America in particular, comes together and watches it all unfold, how big an event is it?
It's huge, and it's become an event. I mean, we talk about it for months leading up to the actual draft. And what it's selling is hope, right? Because you have to pick a couple of players and be right, and then your team's franchise destiny can change overnight. So that's what's so cool about it. We talk about all these players, we evaluate them. The fans of the college game know about these kids and who they are and what they are. And now it's about how do they fit into this next team? And how will this team improve for the future? Because that's the beautiful thing about the NFL. You always have a chance because of the draft. The worst to the first can happen because you get the best picks, the best talent. And that structure really makes the NFL competitive. So it's all about hope, and we are selling it.
Jason, I think one of the key interesting things is watching the draft, and I've, like you, have watched it for years and years and years. It's getting the best player for what you need. It might not be the best player on the board, but it's the best player for what you need. And as I look at the draft in that first round, you've got Tennessee, Cleveland, and New York Giants. Those are 3 teams, and you know the Giants well, one of your former teams. They have some serious needs. Do you buy into the theory that you go out there and get the best, most impactful player right now, regardless of position? Or are you more in the camp of, you know what, don't look at that. Just what do we need and who can fill that best?
Well, it's tough, right? Because if you need a quarterback, he might not be the best player in the draft, but you need a
Right.
quarterback. So you got to go get one. So that's why you see Cam Ward probably going off as the first pick. But after that, it is position specific. It is who you are, your identity. But there are some players that are so good and so talented, you just go with the player. You might have a bunch of defensive linemen, but there's a defensive lineman there that is dominant, so you go get him. So it's all about the talent. And philosophies change. That's what's so unique. That's what's so different. That's why you have to lock in on what your team wants to do. But in certain situations, you cannot pass on talent. You got to go with the best player, especially in the top 10 picks in the draft.
And JB, can we agree that the best player in this year's draft, without a question, the best talent is got to be Travis Hunter out of Colorado?
Oh, without a doubt. First of all, he's a defensive back, and I will never go against a defensive back because that's what I did. If you got to go back, if you got to backpedal full speed and then transition and cover the best talented people on the planet, you are the best athletes. And yes, Travis Hunter is that. Won the Heisman Trophy, for those that don't know, right? The best player in college football. And what he is he's a ball player. And what I mean by that is he understands the game. He understands space, and he can attack the ball in the air. There are some players that are technically sound and can do a lot of things, but the game at those positions is all about attacking the football, and he can do that. He has a great feel for the game, great anticipation. And the question is, because he can play offense and defense, where will he be in the NFL? What will he do? This will be fun to watch, man. I've never seen a guy like this. I played against Deion Sanders, so I saw him play both ways and saw what that could do for a team. But man, this is different and unique.
Well, that's the fascinating thing, isn't it, Jason? Because Deion Sanders is probably the best known player to have played both sides of the ball. I mean, you could probably tell us, are there any others that have played as well as Deion on both sides of the ball? And if Hunter does make it top 2 pick, is a team really gonna play him both sides of the ball, or they gonna keep him safe and not injured? You know how many injuries happen in football, and his size is a little bit of a concern. Is it a concern to you?
So many interesting things you just brought up, and you're right. How much can you take? What I mean by that is the volume. These playbooks are tough, offense and defense, and as a rookie, trying to get caught to speed on what that looks like, that's challenging. And then all of the snaps you're taking, you're right, you want to stay healthy. Think about this. It's not even about the game. Let's talk about practice. How many snaps you'd have to take and reps in practice just to get ready for that week. So how do you monitor that? Sports and science is there. They can do that. When you're this talented and there's only so many roster spots during the week, if you got a person who can play multiple positions, that frees up resources at other position where you might be able to bring in a backup offensive lineman that week. So this is why it's unique what he can do. I think what we're going to see is in the mini camps right after the draft, they're going to see how much this kid could take on. You see this with rookies all the time. They throw it at you. And the volume and the pace that you have, they'll say, hey, this player can do this, so we'll put more on his plate. And that's what we'll see.
Well, let's talk about how it all works then, because we've already touched on a couple of the players to look out for, but the essence of the NFL draft, I can only liken it over here, and I'm going to use the word soccer, but I wouldn't normally use the word soccer.
Don't do it. Don't do
I
it.
know,
I understand.
No, but I'll do it for the sake of the podcast. I'll do it for the sake of the podcast. So I can only liken it, although this is across obviously a few days, to like a transfer deadline day in football. Yeah. The fun, the sort of, let's say, razzmatazz and everything like that comes with a transfer deadline day. That's what I can liken it to. But tell us how it all kind of works in the sense of who gets the first pick. How is that decided? Just for those that might not quite understand it, Jason.
All right, you got 32 teams. You got 7 rounds, and it's worst to first. If you were the worst team in the NFL that year, you probably get the first pick unless there was some kind of trade or something that happened. We won't get into that because it just gets things all messy, but that can take place. So what does that mean? That means if you are the worst team, you can flip your roster immediately with top talent coming out of the draft. And usually when you look at the starting quarterbacks throughout the league, they're all pretty much first round picks. So when you're thinking about that position, that's where you go get them. So now you're picking, everybody's got to pick in each round based on where they finished in the last year. 250 picks, and it goes all the way into the 7th round, and hopefully you transform your team. A lot of times your roster is built up of guys that were drafted in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th round. So it's not about the first round and how you build your team. So you got to pick smart and pick right in those later rounds. So it's just fascinating because nobody knows what's going to happen because you're waiting for the team in front of you to pick. Maybe they picked your player. Now you have to move and transition on a dime, right? Those war rooms, they call them. They're in there making all these picks. They got these huge charts and boards, and people are talking and people are arguing and people are discussing on what we're going to do next. And we get to watch it all play out. And they are on the clock and they got to make a decision. And those decisions, we get to evaluate these coaches and these front office people on these picks and how they handle it on that day. So that's why the draft, we're all locked in on the event. Am I selling it? Are we going to watch this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's
okay.
good. It's good.
I'm
I'm
to
in.
myself. And I
I'm
love it. Man, I like this.
For the fans who don't understand the draft, Jason may concur with this. I would watch the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good representation of how it works. JB, I want to get back to you and one of your teams, the New York Giants, because for me, following this draft, I think Cam Ward goes number 1, Travis Hunter goes number 2 to Cleveland. And then this is, to me, when the draft's going to get really interesting. What are your New York Giants going to do at 3? I think the smart money is Abdul Carter, the defensive end from Penn State. I think he's one of those can't miss, high energy, can change your defense kind of situations. But man, the allure of an Ashton Genty, a Shedeur Sanders, an explosive player that'll get your fan base excited. If you're in that room on draft day in the war room, what are you doing if you're a Giant?
I'm picking the player I have voted highest, right? Who I have rated highest. And you look at Abdul Carter and you think maybe he's your guy. And the reason why is you can never have too many defensive linemen. And the New York Giants have always done this because those guys that bring pressure on the quarterback, first thing you got to get right is your quarterback. The second thing you got to get right is the guys who attack your quarterback, because that can change everything. So I think they probably go with Abdul Carter and just stack up there on the defensive line. But if they have one of those other players rated higher, they got to swing the bat and go for that. I think they're in a tough situation because right now ownership is always looking. If your coaching staff has longevity and they're going to be there, they let them make their decision. But if not, the owners get in and they make sure they get the player they want because they don't want a coaching staff picking somebody that will make them keep their job when it's not about team building as the way they've constructed it or envision it.
So, Jason, it's number 3, this New York Giants pick is fascinating to me because, Todd, you think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, clearly. Jason, Shedeur Sanders, do you buy into this Shedeur Sanders? I mean, interesting. He's sort of somewhat untested. He went 13-12 at Colorado, turned the program around. He's the son of a great. But do you think that he could do it at the NFL level?
I think he can do it at the NFL level. It's about where they're picking him. The whole conversation now is where do you value him as a pick, right? That's what everybody's discussing. The guy's going in the first round. That's huge. Going in the first round is difficult. I mean, you have to be a great player. But where does he go? Where does he fit? Everybody has positives and negatives. The best coaches take your positives and make sure that's how they orchestrate and construct the team around you so you can be successful. I think he's quite polarizing just because of his confidence, but I've never played with a guy at the quarterback position who isn't confident at all. We just hear more from him now because everybody's got a microphone in their face because of podcasts and things like that. But I like a guy who believes in himself. Tom Brady has been mentoring this guy for years. You think he doesn't know how to prepare? That being said, does he fit with your team? Do you view him as a top 5 pick? Because if he's a top 5 pick, he's your guy. You got to roll with him. So I think right now, are they viewing him as that kind of talent? I don't think so. I think Cam Ward is the number 1, and then after that, it's him. But it's like, where does he fit? And I think that's the problem. But he will go in the first round, and whatever team he goes to, he'll fit because he understands how to work and he understands these moments, man. One thing about the quarterback position, you got to be able to deal with all the pressure, all the stress, all the scrutiny, and this guy can handle it.
Well, let me ask you that, Jason, then. In terms of the step up from college football to the NFL, how ready are these college players to make an impact?
Yeah, it's tough because you never know what's going to happen. It's a faster game. It's faster mentally. It's faster physically. Everything. So the guys that I've seen step up quickly and play well are usually the smart players, the ones who are most cerebral. They get in there, they get a grasp of it, they get a handle of it. So you just never know. I've seen players come out of nowhere, people nobody knew about, and all of a sudden had a really good rookie year because the way they could break down what they're learning, process information. That's the key. Quarterback position is very hard. You want to simplify it for them because they're learning so much on the fly. And really, you can't evaluate them until year 3 or 4. But you want to see constant progress. Do they improve every day in the way they go about their business? But in other positions, you just never know, but it's all about the guys that can take that information that they're given and go out there and execute. And that's the thing about the draft. I don't care where you pick. You never know who's going to be that guy because I beat out a bunch of first rounders and I came out of nowhere. So it's just all about the situation.
As you look at the NFL on a whole, JB, it's a monster. I mean, the NFL is an absolute monster. 20, 30 years ago, it had its footprint on the landscape of the season or the year, maybe 6, 7 months out of the year. And now they've got an imprint on almost every single month. You've got the draft, then we'll get to OTAs, then you have training camp, then you have preseason, and then it goes from, September all the way to January, February. So they're everywhere. I look at that first round, and you make a great point about how this pick in the first round can make or break front offices, general managers, coaches. Is there one player in that first round that really intrigues you? Like, he's a bit of a sleeper, or don't sleep on this guy. I think he's going to be an all-star.
Oh, wow. First of all, you're right about the NFL. They control the calendar, don't they?
Super League. Yeah.
You're like, it's nonstop, and I love it. And you're going to see a lot of different leagues. They need to copy this. Man, when I think about the Premier League, they need to go out and find a way to just push everything. Like, they need to try to find different ways. Man, stretch that transfer day out for a month. I don't know. I know it makes no sense. But yeah, it's just unique about the NFL. They do a good job with that. But I think about Ashton Genty, the running back, right? I think when you got a guy who can play like that, he's out of Boise State. He was one of the finalists for the Heisman. Fast, physical, compact, kind of plays like Emmitt Smith. It's hard to say that because Emmitt Smith is the best running back of all time, but I played with him. And when I watch a guy like that, when they have contact balance, it's amazing. And it's something you can't teach. You hit a guy and he just bounces off of you, hits the ground, spins, all kind of stuff. This guy's got it. So running backs haven't been valued the way they should be, in my opinion, but now that's changing and shifting to somebody out of nowhere who we think doesn't value a running back or doesn't need a running back. Go up and get him. I'm looking at Jacksonville, man. I know they need a defensive lineman, but they might go out and pull the trigger and go get a running back. So I think I like the way he can play, and that'll be an interesting pick for me.
Jason, if Jacksonville does slide up and take him at 5, that really puts Las Vegas in a hole, because I think right now a lot of people are pegging him to go play for Pete Carroll. So to your point that you said earlier, what Kate and Natalie were talking about, if someone takes your guy, you got to have a backup or a plan B or a plan C.
Quickly, and all they're doing, for people that don't know, is they are planning this. They have mock drafts. They sit in the war room. They go through these situations and scenarios. It's like planning for a war. What do we do if X does this? And that's exactly how they're orchestrating this thing. And they're ready for it, because in those moments, they have to go, where have we valued the next player? Forget emotion. We've done all the research. Now let's make the pick based on that. This might be the direction we wanted to go in, but things have changed, so we have to change also.
So I just wanted to say how it's all going to play out. It's going to play out in Green Bay in Wisconsin at Lambeau Field, where I think over 240-something thousand fans are going to be there to witness it all happen over the course of the few days of the draft. It's going to be quite electric, I'm sure. And what an experience for those fans to be there as well.
Has the snow melted yet over there, Jason? Is it going to be warm enough for them?
It's tough over there, but those people hey, it's going to be
They'll turn out.
They'll
turn out.
Yeah, it's going to be a party.
I don't think the snow really stops anyone in Wisconsin, does it?
That's true.
Oh, it'll be fascinating, though.
What I wanted to ask, we're talking about obviously the teams having their picks, and obviously the worst team from last year gets the first pick. Does a player get the choice? Do they want to go to technically the worst team?
No, they don't. And when you're a top pick, that's the pressure, right? You're not going to a great team. You're going to be someone who has to change the destiny of this team. That is a lot of pressure. And they know that. They're used to it. They understand that. That's why when they do start thinking about where they're going to be slotted or picked, they got to think about the coaching staff, the right scenario, right? You might be on a new team with a new coaching staff, so that might work out. You might get picked to a team where you look at ownership and you think, man, there's some instability there. This could be tough. But as a player, man, you just want a shot. This is for all of us to talk about. But players, we're picked here, we go in there, we make the best of it. Now, later round picks or free agents like me, I could pick the team I wanted to go to based upon the best situation for me to make the squad, because at that moment I could. But when you're drafted somewhere, you got to go.
I know I asked earlier on about college football and making the step up to the NFL itself. But college football is so big in America. I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it? Like most of college sports in America. That's the beauty, I think, of college sports. It's just so great in America. But in a way, does that help to prepare you for that step up as well? Like you're saying, dealing with that pressure, because they're used to being on TV. They're used to being through the interview sort of stages and everything else that goes with it. So does that help a little bit as well?
It does. But the difference is this is now a job. The thing about college is now with the whole NIL thing, players are moving around, but you kind of don't get cut. You're there. And the difference is you spend more time with the guys. You're around each other a lot. The NFL is a job, and you learn quickly. Like, you love the game and you prepare for it and you play it, and it's your dream. But it is a job, and you have to treat it as such. And you understand a lot of decisions are made that make no sense at all to you as an individual, but fit into how the team sees their vision and their future. And you just have to chalk it up to that. And the quicker you do that, the easier and the better your career is going to be, because you take emotion out of it and you just handle what you can, and that's what you do on the field. But it's definitely different. And the players that are professional, and what I mean by that, they approach it like a job, usually have more success. You got to put in long hours, and you got to take care of yourself and your business at a different level than you did in college, I believe.
Jason, I want to ask you about a player I've been eyeing off. I think he's a bit of an underrated star, Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. He announced this week that he's not going to be attending the draft, and I found that fascinating because a lot of people have him pegged as a top 10, first round certainly. Who decides who attends the draft? And is it that Jackson Dart doesn't like the cold weather up in Green Bay, or what could be the reasoning around that sort of decision?
So Jackson Dart, people love his talent, but nobody knows kind of where he's going to go, because you're taking a swing, right? And what he doesn't want to do is sit at that draft and that camera keeps panning on his face with him and his family. Where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? Who's going to pick him? You'd rather be somewhere else in your environment. There'll be a camera there, but it won't be as much pressure. So I think that's the main reason he's not attending the NFL draft. That being said, people believe he is so talented, and he is the quarterback that has the most upside in this draft, they say. So it's going to be really interesting to see if somebody else believes that. There have been quarterbacks like that before. Josh Allen was polarizing, right? Look at the way he's turned out. I mean, Lamar Jackson. I mean, this guy went the last pick of the first round. He was a person that the camera was constantly looking at. You remember him leaning over the table with his mom and his hand on his shoulder. It was sad looking. It's not sad anymore for him. But at that moment, you were thinking, man, this is tough. So that's probably the reason he's not attending the draft. But hey, his NFL future is going to be bright. Somebody's going to take a chance with him, and he's got talent.
Well, it's interesting as well, thinking about the players that choose to sign not through the draft, and yourself as being one of them. But there was an interesting news story recently, and for Australians, really a big one. Jordan Petaia, two-time Rugby World Cup player, a former Wallaby, a rugby union player. I'm not sure if you follow rugby much, but a big star down under, has signed with the LA Chargers as a tight end. He's come through the international player pathway, which I find fascinating. And with all the success of Jordan Mailata at the Eagles, it's big news here. How do you see him fitting in? And that international player pathway, how big is that getting?
International player pathway. I mean, what a mechanism, a machine, a game changer. You know, my buddy Osi Umenyiora was at the start of that. He was part of the brains behind it, and it's completely changing everything the NFL can and should do. And what I mean by that is, you think about one thing you can't find is size, speed, and length, right? There's not a lot out there. So if you can find players like that and you can get that have transferable skills, well, you want to get them in your building. And I think rugby and those guys translate. I mean, you see what Jordan has done, a guy that size with that kind of footwork. So you look at the tight end position. I mean, it's de facto offensive lineman, the way you got to block, short area quickness, you know, using speed, size, length, all that. So it makes sense why you get a guy from rugby to play that position. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But do they have the tools, the intangibles? Yes. And we're talking about a game we're trying to make international. The only way you do that is exposing people from around the world. And the player pathway gives those guys a path to the NFL. And that is the key. And I think they are looking for big people that are athletic. There's not that many on the planet. You got to go far and wide to get them. And that's what they're doing.
Well, have you ever watched Jordan Mailata's rugby highlights? If you haven't,
it's embarrassing.
Great watching. Almost as good as draft day.
Oh my gosh. You think about that guy with the ball in his hand, running people over. But the one thing I was looking at looking at his footwork, you know, just the pitter patter, the quick reaction, like that is difficult. And you can see that. And that's all he's doing at offensive lineman. You know, does he have those skills? Let's teach him the technique. We can't teach you to be an explosive, quick twitch athlete at that size. And you see what it's done. He is one of the main reasons they won the Super Bowl. Let's just be honest. That offensive line was dominant, and he is a dominant player.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions to ask you, Jason, then. In terms of, I've watched Hard Knocks, a few of those programs, those series.
Yeah.
They're brilliant documentary series, I must say, on various teams throughout the NFL. They have when they first come together, they've got a huge squad size, let's say, but they do get cut. Players get cut, don't they? Do draft picks get cut straight? Can they get cut straight away?
Yes, they can.
Oh,
yes,
brutal.
they can. Oh, how do you think I made it? I wasn't drafted,
right? No, you weren't.
I was not drafted. So when I came on a team, it was like, hey, whatever, let's get this guy, whatever, you know. The reason I made it, draft picks had to lose their position.
Right.
When I went to New York, I remember they moved me to safety, and I went from corner to safety, and they drafted a guy. I won't say his name. He ended up going to Green Bay. Good player. They cut one of their top draft picks to keep me, and they were like, the Giants hated doing that. But they're like, we don't have a choice. They were so upset that they had to do that. So teams don't like cutting draft picks. Why? They've invested in them. Not only their money, but their time. And usually they got them under contract for a while. So it's reasonable as far as the salary is concerned. But you really don't see a first or second rounders. They last a while. Third rounders can too. A draft pick gives you more time to mess up. I always say that. It just gives you more time. And you really got to take advantage of that, because the later you're drafted, the less time you have. And that's the key. That's the difference.
And I suppose from the draft picks to the out of contract, the free agents, there's quite a number of notable names out there that are, at the time of recording, are still looking for clubs. And I'm thinking of Amari Cooper, Asante Samuel Jr., and let's not forget a Super Bowl winner and Aaron Rodgers. How competitive is that market? And does it go under the radar when you consider the draft is coming up as well?
It's very tough. And when people ask about the NFL career length, and I tell them, 2.5 years, they're like, what? Why? And it's because of that. There is no secondary league. So you have draft picks, you have free agents. Everybody's fighting for these 32 jobs. I mean, these teams with jobs. So it's about 1,600 players in the league. So it is competitive. But what you're seeing now is a pause. What do I mean by that? You've had free agency. You got your top guys. Now you're waiting for the draft. How do we fill our rosters? After that, what holes do we still have? You go back to that pool of free agencies and you start to build your team out. And a lot of times those guys are just waiting to see what teams do in the draft. So it's really it's their prerogative to do that and why they're approaching it that way. Not that teams don't want them. They just want the best situation for themselves.
And do you think someone like Aaron Rodgers can still play, can still make the grade? Is he someone that's worth bringing in? I was reading about bridge quarterback. Is he worth that?
He's worth bringing in. He can still play. He looked better as the Achilles tendon healed. He just needs to go to a team like a Pittsburgh where the culture is the culture and he plugs in. He's not the culture. He's going to have to fit in how they want him to. That defense runs the team. So a place like that, I think they could control him. And it looks like they're still waiting on each other. So we'll see.
Right. So I'm going to ask each of you to give me a prediction or someone to look out for. What's going to happen? I'm going to start with you, Todd.
Okay. I've got 3 first-rounders that I think could be steals. JB, tell me if I'm wrong. I love the kid from South Carolina, the safety, Nick Emmanwori. I think he's a ball hawk. He plays a lot like you played back in UCLA and Westwood in the days. He just finds the ball. I love that running back from North Carolina, Omarion Hampton, a big beast, and he just can power through the line. I think Denver might get him at 20. Arizona's Will Johnson, another cornerback. I love the cornerbacks, kid out of Michigan. But here's a big question for me to Jason really quickly. Those are my 3 sleeper players. JB, the best title of the draft. Mr. Irrelevant, the last guy taken. And it can be, this is the greatest thing. Who's going to be Mr. Irrelevant? Because Brock Purdy, I know your guy, Brock Purdy, San Francisco turned out pretty well for them.
2022. What are we talking about? Brock Purdy. That's what it's all about, man. You just want to get picked. Mr. Irrelevant. It's great. You get the title, and now you get to be associated with a guy who's about to get paid. So, yes, every draft pick matters, man. And I'm telling you, all you want is your name called. You can't be mad at it, but you're right. Hey, let's see. Hey, in the 7th round, everybody remembers that guy. So it's really cool. I'm glad they do that.
Kate, have you got something to look out for, or prediction for us?
I'm a bit contrarian to you, Todd. I think, and Jason, I think Jackson Dart is going to be a star. I'm calling it now, and I know because Brock Purdy is a star, and I knew that before as well. Seriously, though, he brought Ole Miss into relevancy for the first time in a long time, and they were looking to go all the way for a moment. Didn't quite. Made it to a bowl game, but not to the top, playoffs. I just think he is so accurate, and he's got room to move. I'm not sure whether Shedeur Sanders has hit his ceiling yet, but Jackson Dart feels like the way he plays, he's improved every season. I just think he's got a long way to go, and in the NFL, that's exactly what you want from a young quarterback. The other one I like is Cam Scatterboo, the big running back out of Arizona State, the Sun Devils.
I like him.
Did you guys watch that guy in the
I like
playoffs?
He's a bowling ball. Yeah,
I mean,
bowling ball.
Yeah, if you watch any of Pat McAfee, you'll know his head is the size of a small planet, the Cam Scatterboo. And I'm not saying that with any kind of joke. He's got a large head. It's very, very good for being a running back because his neck is very thick. He can run through walls, that guy. But yeah, I think watch him. He might be a sneaky to go a little higher for the teams that want a running back, such as the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I like that. Scatterboo is tough, man. He was fun to watch. I watched him in the bowl game. I was like, I do not want to tackle this dude, man. He is ferocious. I'm going to keep it with the top pick just because, when I think about the situation that he's going to be put in, Cam Ward in Tennessee, right? I think this kid is going to have a good rookie year because they're not going to put a lot on his plate. They're going to run the ball. That's why they got this coaching staff in there. And they're going to play to his strengths. He's going to get rid of the ball quickly. He's going to be a threat running the ball. And I think he's going to have a lot of success like Vince Young had early in his career because the way that whole structure is put in place. I was looking at some tape on him the other day, and one thing he has that I love is he understands space. I mean, he can just feel things happen. He can feel things come open, and that's a key. You can teach a lot of other things. But I think because he's the number 1 pick, we've kind of just put him to the side and we stopped really talking about him and evaluating him. I think this dude is going to have a really good rookie year. And in that conference, it's a fight with all these quarterbacks who's going to take over. I think he could be the guy just because of the way that team is built, can really allow him to be successful as a rookie. So I'm interested in that.
Oh, well, do you know what? I'm in. You've sold it to me. I can't wait for the NFL draft. I'm hoping. You were right earlier on, Jason. You said maybe other sports can kind of learn from this because it just builds up to a wonderful new season to look forward to as well, doesn't it?
It's fun. And we don't know anything. That's the beauty.
Yeah, it's true. Whereas in soccer, I go back to soccer, we kind of have ideas of what teams are going to, who they're going to buy and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really, really intriguing. Jason, for those, I mentioned at the top of the introduction to you that you've got your own podcast, but for those that don't know about it, what is it? Where can they find you?
So we got the Jason and OC podcast, and we talk everything football. We took a little break, but we're going to start up soon again. So that's the podcast. And then I'm on TV all over the UK. So wherever you can watch the games, Sky Sports, free to air partners up in the air. But I've been everywhere. So I'm just on there. And, just watch wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing. Definitely check out the podcast because it's funny. We put a spin on everything. We like to tell stories and have a good time, just like you all do. I listened to a couple of your episodes. You guys cover a lot of stuff, too. It's kind
lot of stuff.
Really skillful. So good job with you all, and thank you for inviting me on here.
Well, you are welcome anytime. You're part of now this Sporting Planets team, so you're welcome.
Yeah. Planet and sports, it just works. Let's do this.
It does. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
And again, our thanks to Jason Bell for spending some time with us on this Sporting Planet, the pride of Millikan High School out of Long Beach, California. Guys, little interesting note, Jason Bell was born on April Fool's Day, so I don't know if we can take everything he said for serious, but it was an interesting thing I was going to bring up with him. Hey, let me just say this. The NFL draft, and Jason really did a fantastic job of kind of capturing the spirit of it, but it's a 3-day event, but there's going to be a day or two before where it's pre-draft shows. The networks will be moving in, the NFL Network, ESPN. The amount of hotel rooms and jersey sales and concessions and restaurants, it is just a money-making machine. And of course, once the draft's over, you have to have a recap show the day after. So what was a 3-day event will really be more like a 5 or 6 day event televised. And for the area of Green Bay, it's going to be a ton of money.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be crazy. And especially Green Bay doesn't necessarily top the tourist list for most people. But here's another thing that fascinates me, Todd. So the NFL draft, a lot of kids grow up wanting to be pro footballer, right? 1 million kids play high school football in the US. 73,000 make it to college football in NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
16,000 of those are draft eligible in a year. So there's 16,000 that are hoping to make it to the pros, and just 257 get drafted. So it's 0.023% of those 1 million high school players, which just gives you an inkling of how tough it is to get into the pros. And then as we're going to hear, as we heard with Jason, that some of those draftees get cut before they even make it to the season. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It really is. But when we were talking with Jason, I was asking about college football and making the grade, the step up, etc. I think that's what's so amazing about college football in America, in the sense that you kind of can do your scouting by watching on the TV. Although, of course, a lot of these scouts will be going to the games because you got to see more than just what's on the TV. But, that's very different to a lot of sports when you consider maybe over here when it comes to the Premier League. Yes, there are the odd games that might feature Premier League teams. When I'm talking about the Football League Trophy, for example, which is one of the smaller cups that's only can be won by Leagues 1 and 2. But really, they have to have traditional old scouts going to the games to watch these players. But that's why it's so amazing how big college football is, that you can pick out talent just from the screen. It's impressive.
Yeah, they do a great job, and they really cross every T, dot every I, because you're about to make a young man who's probably 21, 22, 23, maybe at the latest, an instant millionaire. So it's generational wealth that his family's going to see. But you're also kind of handing him the keys to the Cadillac, as they like to say.
Yeah.
It's your program. And I think Kate brought up a great point to Jason is the teams are going to, especially the high draft picks, they're not really good teams. And they're going to put a lot of pressure on a 21-year-old kid who just got paid millions of dollars to try to help and turn this thing around. And what makes it difficult is you don't know how he's going to respond to the pressure. He's going to be away from family. It's going to be a new environment. How does he respond to the speed, the uptaste of the game, the uptick of the speed and the physicality of it all? And so they look at every single thing of like where you played. And I think that's why a lot of teams get nervous about a young kid who comes from a smaller school. Like, for instance, let's say Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State.
Yeah.
He's not playing at USC or Texas or Alabama or Florida or Georgia. It's a smaller school. So people are thinking, well, he hasn't seen the same type of competition that those guys from those other big schools come into. So much of it goes into play, and it's amazing what the NFL can do.
I mentioned earlier with Jason as well about likening it to transfer deadline day. That's the only thing I can think of when it comes to football and
Yeah.
soccer. There's always been a call for those days to be made a bank holiday, a public holiday. Is that the
Yeah.
same in America? Is that the feeling for the draft?
I know there's been big sentiment to push, honestly, this is no joke, to push the day after the Super Bowl as a national holiday. And I've got to think opening day of Major League Baseball is on that list as well. They'd love to make that a holiday because it's just kind of a rite of spring in North America. But I wouldn't be surprised because the draft really, I know friends, they'll get their team's favorite jerseys. They'll make the trip to wherever the draft is because you don't have to have a like sit down seat. You don't have to sit in that seat for 8 hours.
Yeah.
You go and you wait to see when your team picks, and then you leave and you go get something to eat and then come back to see when your team gets their next pick in the next draft or next round. So it's just crazy. But do yourself a favor. If you have not seen Draft Day with Kevin Costner, it's a brilliant movie. It is a
I
brilliant movie.
love a film
It's
recommendation.
So
Love
good.
it.
And by the way, Nat, good idea with the public holiday. It's actually happening this year down under. Australia and New Zealand have Anzac Day public holiday this Friday, which is Thursday in America. So we will be literally putting our feet up on Anzac Day to watch the draft for the 3-day weekend. It's actually perfect. The more I think about it, the more the NFL is really, they announced that they're going to come to Australia with a game in 2026. They've got the international player pathway. They have their eyes set on Australia, and it starts with a public holiday.
All right, before we go, it is time to find out what we're all looking forward to in the next few weeks. It's time for Any Other Business.
Yeah, we're going to start with me, and it really is a case of all systems go with the football seasons reaching their climax, and with the title to be wrapped up sooner rather than later and the relegation fight pretty much all but over. The Premier League focus will be on the battle to secure a spot for Europe for next year, which could actually involve up to 12 teams. That really goes to show how tight the top flight really is currently. And keep an eye on what happens with Manchester United and maybe Tottenham as well, who are experiencing a terrible, terrible season. In particular on Manchester United, they're having their worst ever Premier League season. Their lowest points total is certainly what they will achieve, and also their worst position in the table. And by the end of the season, they could end up in 17th, which is the place just above the relegation zone. That's how disastrous that season has been for Ruben Amorim and his team. A league title still need to be decided in Spain, where Barcelona hold the edge at present over Real Madrid. Bayern Munich are in pole position to win the Bundesliga, and Inter Milan and Napoli are going toe-to-toe in the fight to win Serie A. So by the next time we all meet again, we should know who will be celebrating and who will be drowning their sorrows.
Well, you've got to win it to ring it, and that's what they say about the trophy of the fabled world surfing event, the Rip Curl Pro, which is currently going on down under at Bells Beach. The finals are being surfed in the next few days, and that'll be a fascinating watch, guys, especially with so much new talent on the women's side. There's 19-year-old Katie Simmers. She's a defending world champion, while tour veteran Tyler Wright has won it twice before. And one time she had to beat out her protege, Molly Picklum. And Molly, well, she would love to come back and get one over her mentor. Staying in the water, the Australian Open Championships of Swimming are underway over the next few days, and four-time Olympian Cam McIlroy is proving his innovative low-distance training regime is effective. Cam dominated the 50-metre butterfly yesterday, having not swum a full 50-metre sprint in training since the Paris Olympics, guys. And that's where, of course, he won the gold medal. Apparently, he fields multiple messages per day from other swimmers who want in on his training approach. And this Friday, we have the traditional Anzac Day AFL clash, as well as the draft. We've got to watch some footy. It's the Magpies against the Bombers, and it's a public holiday for Australian and New Zealand footy fans. Always a sellout crowd of 100,000 at the MCG.
And staying with the water in your part of the world, Kate, the SailGP event scheduled for Rio the first week of May was canceled after a wing collapse for Team Australia in San Francisco a few weeks back. So the league decided out of an abundance of caution to examine each wing and look at reinforcing them to avoid any future breakage. That means the next event for SailGP will take place in the Big Apple, New York City, in the first week of June. And Cooper Flagg, the Duke University freshman all-star, has declared for the upcoming NBA draft in June, and he is widely regarded as the consensus #1 pick in the NBA. This is a young man who technically should still be in high school, came out early, went to Duke, led his team on an improbable run through the NCAA tournament. They came up short, though, not making it to the title game, but he will go pro, and everyone says he will be the guy whose name will be called #1. And a quick shout out to the University of Oklahoma Sooners, the women winning their 8th NCAA title in women's gymnastics. These are the kind of programs that really funnel a lot of their talent into USA Gymnastics. So we'll see if any of the women on Oklahoma Sooners' national title winning squad this year make it to the next Summer Olympics.
That's it for this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show via your favourite podcast provider so you never miss an episode.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a women's sports special where Kate and myself will be joined by the broadcaster, Colette Wong.
And that will be an episode you do not want to miss. Until next time, for myself, Natalie, Kate, Super Bowl winner Jason Bell, and the whole This Sporting Planet team, thanks for listening.